Students are really feeling more unhappy than they've ever felt. We see that rates of depression have doubled just in the last 9 years in the US right now. And I think students were voting with their feet. I think they don't like this culture of feeling depressed and anxious. They really wanted to take action on it. I think that's why they took the class.
So a lot of people think they'll be happier if they get nice things. How does that play out?
Yeah, this is a big misconception in terms of how we think about the types of things that will make us happy. Usually we think that stuff is the way to happiness. I want to get a new house or a bigger house or a new car, new clothing. The research shows that the stuff we buy isn't as connected to happiness as we think. And that raises an interesting possibility, which is that we might not want to be spending our money on stuff to become happier. We might be better off spending our money on things that we don't get used to, things like experiences. And there's lots of work suggesting that people who spend their time more on experiences, who take time to experience interesting things like cool concerts and movies and so on, that can actually promote happiness more than spending your money on stuff.
Can you tell me a little bit more, like how do people around us influence our happiness?
Well, this is one of the clearest things we see from the science, which is that happy people tend to be social people. Happy people spend more time with others, and they spend more time with the people they care about. And I think this is really powerful. This means that other people in some ways might really be the key to our happiness. And I think that there's no surprise why happiness is going down over time. I see students in my dining hall, this incredibly social space on a college campus, eating food by themselves with these big headphones on their ears, not talking to one another.
The rise of tech is basically increasing loneliness. Do you see a correlation in your studies there?
You definitely do. Rates of loneliness are skyrocketing, especially among young people. In all different age demographics, but young people especially, which is ironic, right? Because we now have technology that allows us to connect with anyone, anywhere on the planet. But it seems like we're not using it to make real connection. We get this fake connection when we scroll through a feed, but that's not talking to a person in real time.
Does the speed of how we get information make us less happy?
We find out so many things so fast right now. And that means that, the highs come really quickly. Those interesting stories that we read online, and then we get the kind of quick hit of, oh, that was interesting, or oh, that satisfied my curiosity. But we're getting those so fast, it's harder to be mindful. It's harder to kind of pay attention over time. And I think that's really leading to some of the unhappiness we see. We get these hits so quickly, we start to expect them. But then that never gives us time to process. It never gives us time to take stock and really value the kinds of things that we've gotten.
How does our use of social media affect our happiness?
The first is that we often end up socially comparing our lives with other people's lives on social media. You look at other people's vacation pictures, other people's bikini shots, and you're constantly comparing yourself against other people. And we tend to come up short. In part because these sites are giving us curated social information. There's also just deficits in terms of social connection. I think it can become easier, say when you're in a social situation like a line or even a meal with friends where things are getting bored, to, whip out your phone and check your feed.
Well, Laurie, I picked up on the word curation. Do you think these big tech companies know what they're doing?
Sure.
And from your study, have you seen an effort from them to make things a little bit better?
The social media companies, their interest is not necessarily aligned with what's going to make us happiest. And that's potentially dangerous, for those of us who are on these sites. Social media companies, in general, they don't want to be cigarette companies. And what I mean by that is, there was a time when cigarette companies had to be regulated by governments who came in and said, do X, Y, and Z because they weren't doing their job. And I think social media companies, they don't want to go down that route. And so I think technology more and more is trying to build in stopgaps to help us. Think of, the recent edition of the iPhone, which tells you how much time you're spending on the iPhone. And I don't think anyone looked at that little measure and said, oh, I should spend more time on my iPhone. No, most of us see that and say, oh, I need to spend more time with family or things like that and so on.
So we are living in weird times, and I have to swing, your expertise over to this part of the world and how we can apply it here. So as you know, we've had 6 months of protests in Hong Kong. I think the question is, how does civil unrest play into happiness?
Well, I think it plays in a big way. I mean, we know that things like uncertainty in society, we know that kind of tribalism, feeling like, two groups are warring against each other, these things are not great for happiness. If anything, they're increasing things like anxiety and stress and so on. And so I think that it's all the more reason that the folks in Hong Kong who are going through this incredibly tough time need to pay attention to the real ways to become happier, not just the things you expect are going to work, but the things that science really suggests. And I think if you look at those things, it tends to be stuff we don't often expect. Take time to actually be with friends and family members, not talking about the unrest, but just trying to make really rich social connections. Take a little bit of time off, I think, can be really important. And so I think kind of taking the time to pause and be mindful and taking a bigger picture can often be really, really helpful.
Is it as simple as by studying your course, you are a happier person? Is that how it works?
Oh, I wish. I mean, I'd have many more subscribers to my podcast if it was just, listen to one episode and then you're good. Sadly, even for the person who teaches the class, that's just not how happiness works. You have to put effort in. Researcher in happiness, Sonia Lyubomirsky, is fond of saying it takes effort and commitment every day of your life, like most other good things, learning a sport or mastering a profession. Happiness takes work, and that's important to realize. You need to kind of put some time in. The good news is that if you know what to do, if you know the strategies that really will work for improving your well-being, you really can make a difference. Even in difficult times, these kinds of strategies work better than we expect.
Well, Dr. Laurie Santos, with a podcast of 4 million downloads and still going on strong, it feels like people are looking forward to learn a little bit more about being happier.
Thank you so much.